Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on our inaugural BG Insights videocast here today to talk to the lovely and talented Leah Gallagher about what she's hearing going on in education and higher education these days. And we have a number of clients in this space, and we work with them in a number of different areas. We are, if you're not familiar with the Belfort Group, we are a group of thinkers, writers, planners, designers, and tacticians, and we focus in for a handful of key areas. But education, public affairs, professional services, and nonprofits and associations are the core of what we do. And our education practice has been around for quite some time now, but I think over the years we've have learned to pivot quickly and do different things because of what's going on in just the space as a whole. But now with COVID-19 and the disruption we're all facing, we've learned some things that Leah and her team have learned over the past, how many, 45, 50 days we've been at this, Leah?
My spiel says 2 months, so.
Yeah. In education, we cover the spectrum, everything from your general reputation management, public relations, and awareness through, in the trenches, lead generation campaigns, which is where Leah and her team's expertise really comes into play. So with that said, I'd love to pass it off to Leah, talk about some of our work, and then get into the conversation.
Thanks, Don. Yeah, so as you can see, we work with a variety of clients from small independent schools all the way to large public and large private institutions. So we have really diversified skill sets and experience in-house. Our team has had the opportunity to do everything from, community colleges to really specific programs for continuing ed to programs for executive education and undergrad. So this is kind of, just a quick hit of who our clients are. And, now I just really want to jump into the content that I promised for today. So, as Don mentioned, over the last 2 months, my team and I have been navigating this evolving COVID-19 situation, along with our clients. So today, I'm going to try and be brief. Brevity has never been my strong suit, but I think one of the things that I'm learning is in this environment, we need to adapt. And one of the things we're seeing is people want really quick, easy, digestible engagements. So I'm going to try and stay true to what I'm presenting on today and provide that for you all. So it'll be a quick presentation followed by an opportunity to ask any questions that people might have. So as I said, over the last 2 months, we've really been navigating this crisis. And I think that, the big thing for our clients is there's so much uncertainty around it that it's made it a little bit hard and a little daunting from a marketing perspective. So one of the things that I want to talk about is just, the big challenges that our team has really seen along with our clients. Finding effective solutions for delivering online education is actually impacting the marketing efforts in some ways. So, because administration doesn't know where we'll be in 3 months, 6 months, a year even, it's really difficult to then market to prospective students and families. So one of the things that, we've looked at is how do you kind of marry that messaging into the marketing efforts? Another thing that we're thinking about all the time is, how do we move to this virtual recruitment model? So how do we take everything and, move to a completely digital focus and help not just with the marketing efforts, but those admissions efforts as well. So that's kind of the bulk of what I want to talk about today. A few things that kind of complicate this again are, those uncertainties around the pandemic, the difficulty that people have been having converting accepted students because there's uncertainty. And then just there's a lot of increased competition online too, right? You are not the only ones who are looking to quickly change your marketing efforts. We're seeing a lot of competition in market right now. So how do we address this? First, we have to take a look at your existing marketing plan. So one of the things that we've been doing with our clients is really looking at redefining audiences. We don't always need to blow up all of the personas that have been built and the work that has been done, but we want to look at behavioral changes. So we want to understand what are the changes in your audience's behaviors that are going to need to impact how and where we message to them. So the first thing we do is look at those personas and we figure out what new personas might we need, how might we need to tweak those. So when we think about your audience, when we think about, and when you think about personally, where the bulk of your students come from, if they're students that are coming from far away because your location is a really great selling point to them, you might want to rethink how much you focus on that location because, of course, now with COVID, students are thinking a little bit differently about how they approach education. So we look first at that, and then we, take a look at your messaging. And we really look at how do we, again, align that messaging and speak more direct to audience and be honest about what's going on right now and how the school's prepared to handle that. again, people understand that we don't have all the answers. So what we found to be a really effective tactic with clients is being direct and honest. A great example of that is one of our clients has been doing regular kind of fireside chats with the president, not just for their existing students, but also for prospective students. So really kind of state of the unions on here's where we are right now, and here's what we're doing to prepare for any scenario moving forward. And those direct communications and honest conversations have really helped to kind of bridge the gap with converting some of those accepted students and giving them a level of comfort so they're not looking to alternatives like a gap year or maybe a more local school. Other things that we then kind of look at is once we've redefined that audience, created some core messaging that speak to the here and now, we're looking at understanding the competition in market. As I spoke to before, we're seeing increased competition, which means higher bids on things like paid social and Google ads. It means that firms that you might have been winning on before, you might not be now. It means that you might have to spend a little bit more or spend more wisely in order to not have to blow up your budget. So with our clients, we've been going through and looking, channel by channel, how can we make sure we're in every channel effectively and that we're cutting through all that noise out there? Because again, your competitors are looking to do the same thing. So we need to make sure that we're really putting interesting and engaging content in market. So when we think about that, it's not just about creating new assets. It's about looking at what you already have. We know bandwidth can be an issue. So one of the things we do with our clients first is we look at, okay, so, when you think about all of the assets that you've built over the years, what things are still relevant and can be tweaked so that we can get them to market sooner? And then what bandwidth do you have to create new and exciting things? With our clients, they're working with our in-house design team all the time to look at, okay, what can we create that is consistent with our new messaging? What can we create that's going to speak to the pain points here and now? What visual elements can we introduce on the marketing side? And that's an iterative process. We're getting things to market quickly, which is really important, and then tweaking and learning as we go. So another component to that has been that test and perfect model. It's more important now than ever. One of the real opportunities about moving to this more virtual environment is that you're not as committed. You can actually change out assets. You can see what's working and pivot as you need to. So, we may have assumptions about an audience that aren't always right, and we can make those changes really quickly as we move through this process. So, getting to market quickly is key. It allows us to test and then make changes so that we can really be in front of the people that you need to be hitting right now. And again, so that's just about going to market. So now, once our clients are in market, we're also looking at how do you marry that to the admission side. It's not just about that top level marketing and cutting through that noise. It's about making sure that your admissions team has the same access, even if it's in a different format, to the students that they would during their normal recruitment process. One thing that's really important and that our team does a lot of work with our clients on is really marrying those two teams, because one of the challenges, even before COVID, for digital and virtual recruitment, for admissions teams, where it requires them to really work differently, right? So it requires them to look at, leads coming in that they haven't had a personal interaction with. It's not just about how do you get in front of someone at an open house or how do you get in front of someone, at a college fair. You actually really have to look at these differently and understand their path differently. So one thing that we try and have all our clients rely on is really strong CRM implementation. So making sure that your marketing and your admissions efforts are connected through the CRM so that your admissions team has access to see that person's path to entry. So whether someone came in really early on and engaged and gave their contact information, or whether someone came through as a stealth applicant, it's really important that your admissions team understands their point of entry and their behaviors on your website everywhere from that point, because that's going to be really integral in making sure that that your admissions team is able to handle this person the right way. One of the downsides to virtual recruitment is that while we have more access to people online where it might be a lower barrier to entry, it's harder to keep them engaged and you can lose them really quickly. So if an admissions team member is talking to someone and they don't understand, that person, and they haven't looked at that profile and they don't know what their user behaviors have been, it can actually turn that person off much faster than it would in an in-person conversation. So those are really important things to keep in mind. The other big thing on the admission side is, of course, virtual events. So Actually, next week, I'm going to be sharing, please feel free to tune in, and having a client join us. We're in the middle of their virtual accepted student week. So we moved to a full week format. The reason that we did that is because virtual events, especially right now, have become a little bit cumbersome for people, right? There's so much out there and there are so many people trying to get your attention that we know we need to be quick, to the point, and engaging. So some of the tactics we've taken that we'll talk about next week are, visual engagement, making sure we're creating things like snap filters for our clients, so that they have things that are unique to their students, and their students can play around with them and engage. Anywhere we can, we like to use, the opportunity to have real direct conversations. So whether it be the format that we're using now, where we have a live chat session, or a format like some of our clients are doing, where we actually enable video and audio for people to ask their questions and engage directly, we found that less talking and more engagement and answering questions and letting the people really have an opportunity to talk one-to-one, it has been really successful in keeping people online. So we've seen really low drop-off rates with things like 1-hour calls. And the reason for that is because we're moving right to the Q&As really quickly. We're getting the points out there, and then we're moving on to engagement. I think one of the things that we're seeing out of this crisis is that people miss that face-to-face interaction. So this is the closest they can get to it. So giving them not just a talking head, but a person to talk to is really important. So, with that in mind, those are kind of the quick hitting things that you can do quickly and make actionable. I'd love to talk to anyone who has questions about how we can help you make those things actionable, or advice we can give you on doing that.
Good stuff, Leah. I think that your point about FaceTime is really important, and the narrative I've heard is we all have time now that we're sitting at home, which I don't think is really the case. I think that out of the 24 hours, there's only a certain amount of time you may have disposable to do things like this. So talk to me a little bit more about while the process for enrollment marketing seems to be the same, it's just being delivered differently because of just the physical nature of enrollment. Because as a dad whose daughter will be looking at schools next year, I've been dreaming about visiting campuses, but that's going to change. So, I mean, it seems like marketers, admissions folks, enrollment folks, it's a collective opportunity for them to think about how do we do what we do, but just deliver it the same way, just maybe differently, but still maintains that personalization. What are some of the challenges there?
Yeah, so some of the challenges are things like, we've fallen victim to this with our clients too, right? We have these big pie in the sky ideas sometimes about, oh, well, let's just do a live virtual tour. Those can be really clunky, right? So, a lot of schools have really nice virtual tours set up. Doesn't replace the in-person experience, but that's great if you do. It's a great asset to use. What we actually have been finding to be really effective are customized personal tours for different events. So not just directing people to your virtual tour, but actually recording quick sessions where you move around campus. We record those ahead of time because what people don't take into account sometimes is we don't want someone walking from one building to another, giving a full tour of the campus, right? We want to make sure that we're jumping from one location to another. So a really easy way to do that is have different people in different places you want to show off on campus and be able to jump from one place to the next, so that there's not that kind of clunkiness involved. You can do those live or you can do them pre-recorded. It oftentimes depends on comfort level of who's doing the tour and those sort of things. But yeah, there are ways that you can really customize these and make them feel more personalized. The reason we like to record differently for different sessions is so that it doesn't feel like it's a one size fits all. What an accepted student is interested in seeing about your campus is actually going to be really different than what a prospective student, who doesn't know much about your campus is going to be. An accepted student may or may not have been on campus already, but they're going to have much different needs than your prospective students. So keeping your audience in mind as you're building this visual content.
Good point. I mean, obviously, there's a million things that folks that are in enrollment marketing need to do to get a student from point A to point B or Z for that matter. If you were to give one thing to do now, based on all of this disruption, what was the sort of the common piece of advice you'd provide to those that are in the space?
Don't let perfect be the enemy of good, and don't be afraid of the unknown. I think this is created a situation where people have had to really quickly pivot their efforts. And, I think about education and I think about our work over the last 10 years in this space. And, people have slowly moved to more of a balance of digital and traditional marketing. And this has really forced a lot of hands in, not just the way that we deliver online education, but in how we market online. And so I think, people have been a little bit, and understandably, wary of changing their marketing efforts and now's the time to do it. You have to act quickly. And that doesn't mean throwing out your traditional efforts. It means pivoting them, right? So things like, home mailers, those are still really valuable and important. Maybe you just use them a little bit differently. Maybe you're a little more discerning with who and how you're sending them. And you're creating more high value, content that you send home, something that might be a little bit more expensive to produce, but gives a more personal feel. On the flip side of that, maybe you're putting a little bit more into your digital channels. And again, you're taking the opportunity to test things that you haven't been able to in the past. And you're looking at the data constantly to figure out what is working and what isn't. I know that was more than one.
No, that's a good call, because I think that maybe the next one we do, we can talk about data, because I'm sure we can swim in that information all day long. But thank you for taking the time today to do this session. Really important stuff. Thank you for all those that tuned in today. You can get more information about the Belfort Group at the belfortgroup.com. And if you need to reach Leah, it's pretty simple. Leah at thebelfortgroup.com. She's always willing to take a call or an email if you have some problems, and she's a pretty good sleuth in coming to the party with some solutions if you have any challenges. So again, thank you all for joining, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Belfort Group Insights Videocast.
Thanks, Tom.